She was humiliated for being short, for having a soft frame, for wearing shoes that looked like they came from a thrift store storage bin. They called her the janitor's sister, the cosplay boxer, the walking kettlebell, until in a single round she dropped an 80-kilo man with a textbook liver hook, and the gym went quiet like a funeral. Lena Moore stepped into cliffside boxing and performance gym on a quiet Tuesday afternoon in Brooklyn, the air thick with the stench of sweat, leather, and overpriced protein shakes. The gym was a clash of worlds. In the back, real fighters trained there. Knuckles taped, their faces bruised from sparring sessions that left blood on the mats. Up front, rich kids and fitness models paid personal trainers to stage Instagram-worthy workouts. Their poses reflected in floor-to-ceiling mirrors. Lena's presence barely registered. At 53 and 132 pounds, she looked like she'd wandered into the wrong building. Her white t-shirt was faded, the hem frayed from years of wear. Her boxing shorts hung loose, patched at the seams. Her training shoes were cracked, the soles worn thin, squeaking faintly on the polished floor. Her gloves, patched and scuffed, dangled from her wrist, and her hair was pulled into a low bun, revealing a thin scar across her chin, a mark so subtle it was easy to miss. She carried a canvas gym bag, its straps frayed, slung over one shoulder. Her brown eyes scanned the room, calm but piercing like a blade tucked into a worn sheath. She moved with a quiet purpose, her steps deliberate, her presence unassuming yet heavy with something no one could name. The gym's chatter didn't pause, no one noticed her, not yet. The front desk was a hub of activity, manned by Kyle, a trainer with a jawline like a razor and a cliffside branded tank top stretched tight over his biceps. He was flipping through a sign-up sheet, half listening to a fitness model named Chloe who was ranting about the gym's lighting ruining her latest TikTok. Chloe's ponytail bounced as she gestured, her voice sharp with entitlement. Lena approached her bag, brushing against her hip, and set it down gently. "Hi," she said, her voice soft but clear, cutting through the noise like a whisper in a storm. "Could I register for a sparring round?" Kyle froze, his pen hovering over the sheet. He looked her up and down, his eyes lingering on her worn shoes, her patched gloves. His lips twitched, not quite a smirk but close. "Sparring in the ring," he said, his tone laced with doubt. "This isn't a cardio class. You ever even thrown a punch?" Chloe snorted, adjusting her sports bra. "Oh honey, you're going to get flattened," she said, not bothering to lower her voice. A couple of nearby trainees, their tank tops emlaced with Cliffside Elite, chuckled, their eyes flicking to Lena, expecting her to blush or back down. She didn't. Her face stayed calm, her posture relaxed as if she hadn't heard them at all. Before Lena could respond, a loud barking laugh cut through the gym, sharp enough to turn heads. Jason Creed, 2661, 80 kilos of lean muscle and unchecked arrogance, leaned against a punching bag, his brand new gloves gleaming under the fluorescent lights. His hair was gelled into a perfect swoop, his smile sharp and predatory, the kind that thrived on attention. Jason was a gym regular, the self-proclaimed local champ who'd won a handful of amateur bouts against out-of-shape opponents. He loved filming sparring sessions where he toyed with beginners, posting them online with captions like, "Teaching the rookies how it's done." He looked Lena over, his grin widening as he sensed an easy target. "Sparring here," he said, his voice carrying across the room. "You're like, what, 100 pounds soaking wet? You'd snap if I breathed on you." The crowd around him, trainers, trainees, and hangers-on, burst into laughter. A guy in a Cliffside Elite tank top called out, "Yo Jason, don't break her, she's got to make it to her desk job tomorrow." Another trainee, a woman with a high ponytail, nudged Jason's arm. "Careful champ, you break her nose, you're paying her medical bills." The gym vibrated with mockery, the air thick with their amusement. Lena stood still, her eyes locked on Jason, unblinking. Lena tilted her head slightly, her voice so even it could have been mistaken for politeness. "You willing to take a round with me?" she asked, the words simple but weighted like a challenge wrapped in cotton. The crowd's laughter wasn't just loud, it was cruel, a chorus of jeers that seemed to press against Lena's skin like a physical weight. A group of fitness models, their manicured nails clutching energy drinks, formed a tight circle near the ring, their voices dripping with venom. "Look at her shoes," one sneered, her voice high and cutting. "Did she dig those out of a dumpster?" Another, a woman with a spray tan and a diamond stud in her nose, mimicked Lena's walk, exaggerating the squeak of her shoes, drawing cackles from her friends. "She's got to be lost," she said. "This is a gym, not a soup kitchen." A male trainee, his biceps glistening with sweat, leaned in, his voice loud enough to carry, "Yo Jason, you're fighting the janitor's sister, make it quick, she's got floors to mop." The crowd roared, their mockery relentless, each word a jab aimed at Lena's quiet dignity. She stood by the ring, her hands adjusting her gloves, her face betraying nothing, no flush of shame, no flicker of anger, but the air around her seemed to thicken, charged with the gym's collective disdain, a storm of contempt she refused to acknowledge. The gym erupted again, the laughter louder this time, bouncing off the mirrors. Chloe doubled over, clutching her water bottle. "Oh my God, she's serious," she gasped. The guy in the tank top shook his head, muttering, "This girl's got no idea what she's in for." Another trainee, a lanky Kid filming his deadlifts called out, "Hey lightweight, you sure you don't want a yoga class instead?" The mockery was relentless, a wave of derision that filled every corner of the gym. No one thought she was serious, not Kyle, not Chloe, not the trainers wiping down equipment or the kids posing with dumbbells. Jason clapped his hands, the sound sharp and theatrical playing to his audience. "Oh, this is too good," he said, turning to the crowd like a ring master. "Ladies and gentlemen, we got ourselves a challenger. Little Miss Office Worker wants to step into the ring with Jason Creed." The fitness models giggled, their phones already out, ready to capture the comedy. Lena didn't react. She adjusted her gloves, the frayed straps creaking as she tightened them, her movements precise, unhurried. Kyle smirked, scribbling Lena's name on the sign-up sheet with a flourish. "All right, fine, 1 round, 3 minutes. Jason, take it easy. She's probably never thrown a punch in her life." The head coach, Tony, a grizzled man with a face like weathered leather and a voice rough from years of shouting, stepped forward, wiping his hands on a towel. He looked Lena over, his eyes narrowing slightly, but he didn't ask questions. "You don't have to win, sweetheart," he said, his tone patronizing, like he was talking to a child. "Just survive, tap out if it gets too rough." Lena nodded once, her lips pressed into a thin line, and climbed into the ring, her shoes scuffing the canvas as Lena climbed into the ring. A trainer named Vince, his clipboard tucked under his arm, leaned toward a group of regulars, his voice low but deliberately audible. "This is a joke, right? She's going to get herself hurt and we'll all be stuck cleaning up the mess." He gestured at Lena, his sneer twisting his face. "Look at her. Those gloves are older than my car. She's probably here to impress some boyfriend." A woman nearby, her leggings emlaced with a designer logo, laughed sharply. "Boyfriend, please. She looks like she's auditioning for a low-budget Rocky reboot." The group snickered, their eyes darting to Lena, who was testing the ropes, her movements precise despite the worn canvas under her feet. A kid with a man bun filming the scene zoomed in on her scarred chin, muttering, "Bet that's from tripping over her own ego." The gym's atmosphere grew uglier, each taunt a calculated strike at Lena's quiet resolve, yet she didn't look up, didn't respond, her focus locked on the ring as if the world beyond it didn't exist. The crowd gathered closer, their phones raised, their lenses glinting under the lights. The mirrors reflected their anticipation, their smirks, their certainty that this would be over in seconds. Jason strutted to his corner, slipping on his gloves with a flourish, his entrance music a generic hip-hop track blaring from a Bluetooth speaker. He bounced on his toes, shadow boxing for the cameras, his red and gold gloves flashing. Lena stood in her corner, her stance relaxed, her hands low, her eyes tracking Jason's every move. Before the bell rang, Jason paused his shadow boxing to address the crowd, his voice booming with performative glee. "All right, folks. Let's give our little challenger a warm cliffside welcome." He pointed at Lena, his grin vicious. "What's your name, kid? Tinkerbell or maybe Sparky, 'cause you're about to get lit up." The crowd howled, their laughter a jagged edge that cut through the gym. A trainee in a neon headband shouted, "Put her back in the kids' class." Jason, another, a burly man with a tribal tattoo, yelled, "Don't cry when he sends you home, sweetheart." The insults piled on each one, sharper, more degrading, as if Lena were a prop in their entertainment. A woman recording on her phone zoomed in, narrating, "This is what happens when you think you're tough but look like a thrift store reject." Lena stood in her corner, her hands low, her eyes fixed on Jason, her silence a stark contrast to the cacophony of scorn. The gym's cruelty was a living thing now wrapping around her, but she didn't bend, didn't break. The bell rang, a sharp clang that silenced the chatter, and the room closed in. Jason came out fast, his jab snapping like a whip. He threw a 3-punch combo, jab, cross, jab, his gloves cutting through the air with practiced precision. Lena didn't throw a single punch, she shifted her weight, her feet sliding across the canvas with a smoothness that felt almost lazy. She slipped left then right, her head tilting just enough to let Jason's punches graze past her body, dipped low, her knees bending as she weaved under a high cross. The crowd didn't notice at first, too busy cheering Jason, too busy waiting for Lena to crumble. As Jason threw his first punches, a group of trainers near the ropes began a running commentary, their voices loud enough to carry over the crowd's cheers. "She's going to run out of the ring in 10 seconds, one said, his arms crossed. "Bet she trips over those clown shoes first," another added, laughing. A female trainee, her nails painted electric blue, leaned forward shouting, "Hey lightweight, you forgot your tutu." The crowd ate it up, their jeers growing bolder, more personal. A guy with a buzz cut tossed a water bottle cap toward the ring, not aiming to hit but close enough to make a point. "Go back to Zumba, girl," he called, grinning as his friends high-fived him. The gym's energy was toxic now, a feeding frenzy of ridicule aimed at Lena's every move. She slipped Jason's punches with ease, but the crowd didn't see her skill. They saw her size, her worn gear, her quiet demeanor, and they tore into her for it. Lena's face remained a mask, her focus unshaken, but the barrage of insults seemed to hang in the air, a storm she navigated without a single glance. But Marcus, a wiry trainer with a shaved head and a boxer's nose, Squinted from the sidelines, his arms crossed. Hold up, he muttered to the PT. Next to him a guy named Derek. That's not beginner defense, that's classic. Mui movement. Derek frowned, glancing at Lena. Mua, she's just dodging, lucky maybe. Marcus shook his head, his eyes narrowing. No way, look at her feet, that's trained. That's deliberate. His voice was low, but it carried a hint of unease, like he'd just seen something he wasn't supposed to. The crowd kept laughing, their phones recording, oblivious to the shift Marcus had noticed. 20 seconds in, Jason's confidence started to fray. His punches were landing on air and Lena hadn't even raised her gloves to block. She was reading him, her eyes locked on his shoulders, his hips, the tiny tails that betrayed his next move. Jason growled, stepping in closer, his frustration bubbling over. He threw a wide right hook, the kind of punch that looked good on video but left him exposed. Lena pivoted sharply, her lead foot planting firm, her back heel sweeping out to redirect her angle. Jason's momentum carried him forward, his balance faltering. He stumbled, his gloves dropping. For a split second the laughter in the gym died, replaced by a low murmur. Did you see that? Chloe whispered, her phone still recording, her voice tinged with confusion. She just made him miss. Derek, standing next to Marcus, frowned deeper. That was weirdly clean, like too clean. The guy in the cliffside elite tank top who'd been heckling earlier leaned forward, his smirk fading. What's she doing? She's not even hitting back. The crowd's energy shifted, their certainty cracking like thin ice midway through the round as Lena dodged another of Jason's wild swings. A cluster of gym regulars near the front began chanting, "Take her down, take her down." Their voices were rhythmic, almost gleeful, as if Lena's presence in the ring was an affront to their world. A woman with a nose ring and a cliffside hoodie shouted, "You're embarrassing yourself, girl, quit while you're still standing." A man next to her, his arms sleeved with tattoos, added, "Jason, stop playing, put her on the floor." The chant grew louder, more aggressive, drowning out the sound of Jason's heavy breathing. A kid with a selfie stick leaned over the ropes, filming Lena's every move, narrating, "This is what delusion looks like, folks." The crowd's hostility was palpable, a wall of contempt that seemed to press against Lena from all sides, yet she moved with the same quiet precision, her eyes never leaving Jason, her body flowing like water around his attacks. The gym's cruelty reached a fever pitch, each taunt a dagger aimed at her silence, but Lena remained untouched, her focus a shield against their hate. Lena's face didn't change, no smirk, no taunt, no sign. She'd registered the crowd's shift. She circled back, her stance low, her gloves hovering near her waist. Jason recovered, his cheeks flushing red with embarrassment. He was angry now, and that made him reckless. He squared up, his shoulders tensing as he prepared a showy uppercut, the kind of punch that would have looked brutal on his highlight reel. He smirked, thinking he had her cornered against the ropes. Lena saw it coming, her eyes flicked to his chest, then his elbow, reading the angle of his arm. She crouched, her hips rotating in one fluid motion, her core tightening like a coiled spring. Her right glove snapped forward, a liver hook aimed square between ribs 8 and 9. The sound was sickening, a dull wet thud like a hammer slamming into dead wood. Jason froze, his smirk vanishing, his eyes went wide, his breath catching in his throat. The uppercut never came, his knees buckled and he collapsed, curling into himself on the canvas, his hands clutching his side. The gym went silent, no cheers, no gasps, just the faint hum of the overhead lights and the creak of the ropes. Jason's face turned pale green, his mouth open as he coughed, unable to move. A trainer vaulted into the ring shouting, "Don't touch him. Check his breathing." The crowd stood frozen, their phones still raised, their mouths open in disbelief. Chloe's hands trembled, her video still running, capturing the moment in stark clarity. Marcus shook his head, his voice barely above a whisper that was textbook. He said, "That liver hook, almost no one lands it clean. Who the hell is this girl?" Derek stared, his protein shake forgotten in his hand. She didn't even look mad, he murmured. "She just did it." Lena stepped back, her gloves still raised, her breathing steady. She didn't look at Jason, didn't look at the crowd. She just waited, her scar catching the light as she tilted her head slightly. The trainer in the ring checked Jason's pulse, muttering something about shock and stay down. The air felt heavy, the gym's bravado replaced by a stunned, almost reverent silence. The gym's door swung open, the hinges creaking loudly. In the quiet, an older man stepped inside. Coach Mike, a legend in the New York Golden Glove circuit. His face was weathered, his hair graying at the temples, his eyes sharp and unyielding like they could see through walls. He took one look at the scene. Jason curled on the canvas, Lena standing calm in the ring, and burst out laughing. The sound was deep, rough like gravel under boots, and it broke the tension like a thunderclap. "I knew that was you," he said, pointing at Lena, his voice carrying across the gym. Lena Moore, former Northeast lightweight champion, retired after a knee injury. "You guys just mocked the Viper." 60 kilos of pain wrapped in cotton. His laughter faded, but his eyes gleamed with pride, maybe even amusement. Coach Mike's laughter faded, but his voice carried a weight that silenced the gym's whispers. "You all thought you were clever, didn't you?" he said, his eyes sweeping the crowd, pinning each guilty face, calling her names, laughing at her Gear, that's Lena Moore, undefeated in the Northeast lightweight division for 3 years. She broke jaws and dreams before. Most of you could throw a decent jab. The fitness models shrank their phones limp. In their hands Chloe's face was ashen, her confidence evaporated. The guy in the Cliffside Elite tank top stared at the floor, his bravado gone. Mike stepped closer to the ring, his voice rising. She didn't come here to show off, she came to test herself, and you just showed the world how small you are. The gym felt like it was holding its breath, the mirrors reflecting a crowd humbled. Exposed. Lena unstrapped her gloves, her movements deliberate, her silence louder than Mike's words. The revelation wasn't just about her past, it was a mirror held up to their shame, and it burned the room. Seemed to shrink, every head turned, every eye dropped. Chloe lowered her phone, her face burning with shame. Kyle at the front desk stared at the sign-up sheet, his pen frozen in his hand, his jaw slack. The guy in the Cliffside Elite tank top muttered, "A champion? Are you kidding me?" The trainee who'd called Lena cosplay boxer whispered to her friend, "We just insulted a champion." The trainee who'd mocked Lena as the cosplay boxer stood rooted to the spot, her friend's hand on her arm, her voice trembling with regret. "We were so wrong," she whispered, her eyes glistening. "She's a champion. And we treated her like a joke." The crowd around her shifted, their faces a mix of guilt and other earlier laughter, now a bitter memory. A trainer nearby, his clipboard forgotten, spoke up, his voice heavy. "I've seen pros who couldn't move like that. We judged her on her clothes, her size, everything but her skill." The gym's atmosphere was thick with self-reproach, the mirrors reflecting a crowd stripped of their arrogance. Lena's words, "Never judge a woman by her size," echoed in their minds, a lesson that cut deeper than any punch. Coach Mike leaned against the ropes, his eyes scanning the room. "She didn't owe you a damn thing," he said, "but she gave you a masterclass in humility." Remember that. The crowd's silence was a testament to their shame, a satisfying reckoning that left the audience cheering for Lena's quiet triumph. Tony, the head coach, crossed his arms, his smirk gone, replaced by a look of grudging respect. As the gym's silence stretched, Tony, the head coach, stepped forward, his usual swagger gone. He cleared his throat, his voice unsteady. "I should have stopped it," he admitted, glancing at the ring where Jason still sat pale and shaken. "I let the mockery go on thinking she was just nobody. I was wrong." The crowd murmured, their heads nodding in reluctant agreement. A female trainee, her ponytail limp, whispered to her friend, "We all were. She made us look like fools." Without saying a word, the revelation of Lena's past wasn't just a shock, it was a mirror forcing the gym to confront their prejudice. Marcus, the wiry trainer, added that liver hook wasn't just a punch, it was a statement. "She's the real deal and we're the ones who look amateur." The gym's energy had shifted from mockery to reverence, each admission a brick in the wall of Lena's victory. The audience felt a surge of satisfaction knowing the bullies' egos had been dismantled by a woman they'd underestimated. Lena's absence only amplified her presence, her legacy now etched into the gym's soul. Jason was still on the canvas, his breathing shallow, his ego shattered into pieces smaller than the grit on the gym floor. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the faint sound of Jason's coughs and the hum of the air conditioning. Lena didn't react to Coach Mike's words. She didn't smile, didn't nod, didn't acknowledge the revelation. She just unstrapped her gloves, the Velcro ripping loudly in the quiet. Her hands were small, her knuckles red from the impact, but steady. She stepped out of the ring, her shoes squeaking on the canvas, then the polished floor. As Lena stepped out of the ring, the trainer who'd vaulted into check Jason knelt beside him, his face grim. "You're lucky she didn't aim higher," he muttered loud enough for the crowd to hear. "A liver shot like that, she could have stopped your heart if she wanted." Jason, still pale, coughed weakly, his eyes glassy with pain and humiliation. The crowd shifted uncomfortably, their phones lowering one by one. Marcus, the wiry trainer, stepped forward, his voice cutting through the silence. "That's not just skill, that's mastery. You all laughed at a woman who could have ended this in 10 seconds." The words landed like punches, each one a reminder of their misjudgment. Lena's scar gleamed under the lights as she walked past, her bag slung over her shoulder, her presence a quiet rebuke. The gym's arrogance had been dismantled and the truth of Lena's power hung heavy, a triumph that needed no words. The crowd's silence was their surrender, and it felt like justice. The crowd parted slightly, their eyes following her, a mix of awe and guilt. One of the phones was still recording, its owner too stunned to lower it. Lena stopped, her eyes locking onto the lens, her expression unreadable. "I don't need people to remember my name," she said, her voice low but firm, each word deliberate. "I need them to remember one thing: never judge a woman by her size." She turned and walked toward the door, her gym bag swinging lightly at her side. The gym stayed silent as the door closed behind her. Jason was finally sitting up, his face still pale, his hands trembling as he tried to stand. No one rushed to help him. The crowd dispersed slowly, their whispers filling the air like static. "Did you see how she moved?" one trainee said, her voice hushed. "She didn't even break a sweat." Another, a guy with a protein shake in hand, shook his head. "That liver shot, I felt it from here." Marcus leaned against the ropes, his arms crossed, muttering, "I'm never underestimating anyone again." Chloe stared at the ring, her eyes distant, her phone clutched tightly. She didn't need to say anything, she said, she just showed us the mirrors reflected. The gym's emptiness, the bravado gone, the egos deflated, the air felt different now. She was quiet, unassuming, barely noticed by the others as she stepped into the gym for the first time. Her hoodie swallowed her frame, her old sneakers barely clinging to the rubber soles. Nobody looked twice. She was just another woman trying to get fit, some thought. Maybe a New Year's resolution. Maybe a breakup. Maybe she'd last a week. The gym smelled like sweat and pride. Leather gloves thudded against heavy bags, men shouted instructions, and egos filled the air like fog. It was a place built for the loud, the aggressive, the flashy. Not someone like her. She didn't have the swagger, the talk, or the physique. She was a shadow in the back corner. A ghost among warriors. Her name was Lana. At first, she stood there watching. Eyes scanning the movement, the rhythm, the patterns. She didn't ask questions. She didn't interrupt. She just observed. The trainer, a thick, gruff man named Rico, barely acknowledged her presence. "You ever boxed before?" he muttered as she approached. She shook her head silently. Rico didn't hide the smirk. "All right, well, grab some wraps. We'll start you off light." And just like that, Lana was thrown into a world where nobody expected anything from her. In fact, they expected her to fail. Day after day, Lana showed up. She didn't complain. She didn't skip drills. She didn't take breaks. While others chatted between rounds, she hit the bag. While others whined about sore shoulders or tight calves, she stretched and went again. She was a machine, quietly feeding her discipline with every punch. But it didn't matter. No one took her seriously. The other students, especially the guys, would laugh when she missed the pads. They'd snicker when her punch didn't make the bag swing. Some even joked behind her back, "She thinks she's in a movie or something." The worst of them was Darren. 80 kilograms of swagger and testosterone. Bald head, shiny with sweat. A loudmouth who liked to spar harder than necessary and treated the ring like a stage. He wasn't the best fighter in the class, but he was the loudest. Every time Lana hit the pads, he'd find a way to make a joke. "Careful, guys. We got a killer in the house," or "Don't let her near your groceries, she might punch your apples into juice." The others would laugh. Lana never responded. She just kept training. Weeks passed. Her jabs got sharper. Her footwork cleaner. She began to flow, not just move. Rico noticed. He didn't say much, but one day, instead of handing her the beginner pads, he gave her a mouthguard and pointed to the sparring ring. "You're ready." She didn't flinch. Didn't smile. She simply stepped forward. And guess who volunteered to be her opponent? Darren. The entire gym paused. This was it. The humiliation finale. Darren was licking his lips, practically bouncing on his toes. "You sure you want this smoke?" he teased. "You sure you don't want to go back to Zumba or yoga or something?" Lana just stood there, gloves on, eyes locked. No emotion. Just silence. Rico called them to center ring. "Touch gloves," he said. Darren slapped her glove like she was a child. The bell rang. Darren came out dancing, taunting. His hands were down, his movements exaggerated. A showman trying to be funny. But Lana didn't laugh. She didn't even blink. She watched his footwork. His angles. His shoulder movement. And then, snap. Like a trapdoor opening under a cocky intruder, she stepped in with perfect timing. A slip to the right, a pivot, a twist of the hips, and then came the punch. It was fast. Too fast. No one saw it clearly. It was a blur of motion, a textbook right hook delivered with surgical precision. Darren's jaw caught it flush. His knees buckled. His eyes went wide with confusion, then glassy. And then, boom. He hit the canvas like a sack of bricks. Flat. Out. The room went silent. No one moved. Rico stared, eyes wide. The others stood frozen, their expressions cycling between disbelief and awe. Darren didn't get up. He lay there, breathing, but dazed, like someone who had just seen a ghost. Lana took a step back. No celebration. No emotion. Just control. Discipline. Stillness. Rico climbed into the ring and checked Darren. "He's okay," he said. "He's just sleeping." A nervous laugh rippled through the gym, but no one laughed at Lana. Not anymore. That one punch changed everything. Not because it was flashy, but because it was flawless. She didn't throw it in anger. She didn't even seem to enjoy it. That's what scared them the most. She climbed out of the ring, unbothered, and went straight to the heavy bag. Back to work. As if nothing had happened. Later, Rico would pull her aside. "Where'd you learn that?" he asked. She looked at him, then at the ring. "My father was a fighter," she said softly. He taught me not to fight for attention, but for control. That was all she said. Rico nodded. He understood. Word spread fast. The woman no one took seriously had just dropped the gym's cockiest fighter with a single, clinical punch. She wasn't loud. She wasn't flashy. She didn't need to be. Her silence was louder than any scream. Her discipline sharper than any insult. And Darren? He came back a week later, quiet. Humbled. He shook Lana's hand without a word and nodded with respect. That was the end of the mockery. That was the beginning of something else entirely. Now, when new people walk into the gym, they look around for the loud ones. The big guys. The talkers. But the veterans? They point to the woman in the corner. Hoodie on. Eyes locked. Working in silence. Don't underestimate her, they whisper. That's Lana. And one punch is all she needs. Heavier, like the gym had been stripped bare and left to reckon with itself. No one laughed anymore, no one posed. The music had stopped and the Bluetooth speaker sat silent in the corner outside. Lena walked down the Brooklyn sidewalk, the afternoon sun casting long shadows. Across the pavement, her knee ached faintly, a dull reminder of the injury that had ended her career 3 years ago. She didn't care about the gym, didn't care about the phones or the laughter. She'd come to Cliffside on a whim. Needing to feel the canvas under her feet, needing to know she still had it. She hadn't planned to fight, hadn't planned to drop anyone but Jason's laugh, the gym's mockery. It had stirred something in her, something she'd buried when she hung up her gloves. The city buzzed around her, indifferent to her. Past her pain, her power, she adjusted her bag and kept walking, her steps steady. Her scar catching the light. A bodega cat watched her from a stoop, its eyes narrowing, and she gave it a small nod, the closest she'd come to a smile all day. The world moved on, but Lena carried her own rhythm, one that didn't need applause. Back in the gym, Tony approached Coach Mike, who was still chuckling to himself, his eyes crinkled with amusement. You knew her? Tony asked, his voice low, almost reverent. Mike nodded, leaning against a punching bag, his hands stuffed in his pockets. Trained her for 2 years. Girls got hands like lightning and a mind like a chess player. She could have gone pro if her knee hadn't given out. Tony whistled low, glancing at the ring where Jason was finally standing, supported by a trainer, and she just walked in here, no warning. Mike shrugged, his smile fading slightly. That's Lena. She doesn't announce herself. She just shows up and reminds you who she is. He paused, then added, you should have seen her in her prime. That liver hook, that was her being nice. Tony shook his head, his respect now unguarded. I owe her an apology, he muttered. Mike laughed, again clapping him on the shoulder. Good luck with that. She won't care. The video from the gym spread later that week, not because of hashtags or influencers, but because someone, probably Chloe, uploaded it raw, unedited, with the title, Don't Mess with a Woman You Know Nothing About. It showed everything: the laughter, the mockery, the fight, the silence. It showed Lena's calm face, her precise movements, her devastating hook. It showed Jason's collapse, Coach Mike's reveal, Lena's final words. The clip went viral, not for the drama but for the lesson. People watched it and felt something: anger, awe, shame, respect. It became the most talked about boxing moment of the year, shared across platforms, dissected in group chats, replayed in gyms from Brooklyn to Bangkok. Comments flooded in. She's a beast. Jason got what he deserved. Never underestimate anyone. The video wasn't about fame or clout, it was about truth. Raw and unfiltered, a moment that cut through the noise of the internet and left a mark. Days later, the gym's regulars were still grappling with the aftermath. A group of trainees gathered near the punching bags, their voices hushed as they replayed the fight. I watched the video again, one said, shaking his head. She didn't just win, she schooled him. Every move was perfect. And another, the kid with the man bun who mocked her scar, looked away, his face flushed. I called her a nobody, he muttered. Now everyone's calling her a legend. The video spread had turned Lena into a symbol, not of vengeance but of quiet strength. Jason back after weeks away, trained in silence, his once loud presence reduced to a shadow. The gym's culture had shifted. No more casual taunts, no more snap judgments. Lena's single round had rewritten their rules, and the audience reveled in the justice of it. Her name, the Viper, was whispered with respect, a reminder that true power didn't need a spotlight. The crowd's transformation was Lena's final victory, a satisfying end to their arrogance. Lena didn't see the video, she didn't have social media, didn't care about views or likes. She was back in her small apartment in Queens, her gloves tucked into a drawer, her shoes drying by the radiator. She sat at her kitchen table sipping black coffee, staring out the window at the city skyline. The world would talk about her for weeks, maybe months. They'd call her the Viper, they'd replay her liver hook, they'd debate whether Jason deserved it, but Lena didn't need their words. She'd said what she needed to say, not with her voice but with her fists. She'd reminded herself that strength wasn't in size or swagger, it was in silence, in precision, in the quiet finality of a single perfect shot. Her coffee steamed in the mug, the only sound in the room. Outside, the city hummed, oblivious to her story, but she didn't mind. She'd never fought for their attention, she'd fought for herself. The gym never felt the same. After that day the fitness models were quieter, their poses less flamboyant. Their laughter subdued, the trainers stopped joking about easy opponents, their eyes scanning newcomers with a new caution. Jason didn't show up for weeks, and when he did he kept his head down. His music off, his bravado gone. Cliffside's reputation shifted subtly. From a place of ego to a place where respect was earned, not assumed. Lena's name lingered in the air, a warning and a legend. Some said she'd come back, others swore she'd vanished for good, but everyone agreed on one thing: they'd never forget her. Not the scar on her chin, not the calm in her eyes, not the hook that silenced a room. The mirrors reflected a different Jim now, one that had been humbled, one that had learned a lesson it couldn't unlearn. The punching bag swayed slightly, the mat still bore the faint stains of sweat, but the air was heavier, carrying the weight of a moment that had changed everything. If this story hit harder than a liver hook, hit like, share this with someone who's ever been underestimated. Drop a comment. Would you get in the ring with her? Subscribe for more stories where silence breaks arrogance, and remember, some punches are